A lot of men believe that if you're a short man, you are going to have a much more difficult time dating. And there has been studies done that reveal what women prefer in terms of height for the types of men that they want to date. And some of the figures that come out in these studies are pretty grim. So I'm going to share with you, first of all, that number. And it says that while over 60% of women are interested in dating men over 6 feet tall, only 15% of women are willing to date a man who is 5'8" or shorter. And I got this stat from the website Evie, which is a pretty feminist website, but I think that the data is very telling, and I think a lot of you guys out there probably can attest to the truth of this statement. If any of you have ever done online dating, you've probably seen on there the number of women who put in their preferences that they want a man who is 6 foot tall or more. Now, I don't really disagree with this data because I see it in my own life and even in my own experiences talking to women and just seeing the types of, and just hearing from women the types of men that they're looking for. But I don't think this is a bad thing. When women prefer men who are taller, this is essentially a biological preference because women are innately built to want to find a man who will be a provider and a protector. And generally men who are taller fit this standard. They initially look like somebody who would fulfill those biological needs that a woman has. And so they're pretty much hardwired to find a man who will be a protector and a provider. And like I said, size it gives the initial impression that a man who is taller will be able to do those things that she is hardwired to want to desire, however, because women are working so much more now, they're making a lot of money, oftentimes making much more than men do. Women no longer need men for provisional sake. And so they are, much more apt to date a man who fulfills their sexual desires versus their provisional desires. And this again will reinforce the fact that women will prefer to date men who look very attractive, whether or not he can provide and protect for her or not, which is essentially why you see so many women complaining that guys are jerks. They leave them on red, and that's because all of the women are chasing these guys who are of that upper echelon status. And those guys who are up there have all the options that they want, so they can date hot women all the way down to the unattractive women without any lack of options, and they can enjoy a different woman every night if they really wanted to. So this is one of the side effects of women being able to provide for themselves and only needing men for sexual pleasures. So what does this leave then for men who are 5'8" or shorter? Is there a way to still date? Is there an option for you? Because I had a question from a viewer asking me, what do I do if I'm a shorter man? And this is the way I look at it, and this is how I want you to consider this, okay? Every man is given a dice roll when he is born, okay? And with this dice roll, you have your stats. It's much like different games or athletics or sports players, video games, Dungeons and Dragons, things like that, where you start with 100 points, and each of those points is divvied out into a certain part of who you are. Some guys get really incredible looks. Some guys get incredible intelligence. Some guys have athleticism. Other guys excel in art. And sometimes they maybe excel in more than one of those things. Sometimes guys have a really handsome face. Some guys have a thick head of hair. And some guys are going to be lacking. If we're talking about a roll of the dice, some guys are going to have areas that they are severely lacking. And in some men's cases, this is going to be height. But here's the thing. The things that you're born with, you really can't change. And the main ones that I'm talking about are going to be your height, No matter what you do, you simply can't do anything about your height. This is what you were born with. This is what you were given. You can't change the shape of your face or how it evolves. You know, you might look like a really cute kid and then evolve into a man who maybe gets less attractive as he gets older in terms of his face, or maybe you get more attractive. You don't know what's going to happen. You can't control that. The third thing that you really can't control is your race or your ethnic background. I'm half Chinese. I didn't have a say in that. I'm part white. I'm part Chinese. I don't have a say in how I look. So that's something that's completely out of my control. And this is the same for each and every one of you. Height, your face shape, and your race or ethnic background. There's nothing you can do. And so the way I have always looked at this is that do not focus in on the things that you cannot change, okay? Because I'm gonna be honest with you guys, okay? If we're talking about the dilemma of only 15% of women being interested in dating a man who is 5'8" or shorter, that's not the biggest amount of percentage, but I'm gonna let you in on a secret. I am 5'8". And although my height is considered short, I have not had a problem dating or attracting women in my life. And I'd also go as far as to say that I'm definitely not the tallest, as I just said. I'm not the most muscular. You know, I'm not super ripped, don't have huge muscles like some men do, nor am I the most handsome man on the planet. You know, I'm a pretty average looking guy. But again, because of the fact that I can't change those things, they never enter into my mind. I don't let them control how I see myself, because no matter how much I agonize, no matter how much I am upset with what the dice roll gave me, I know that there's nothing I can do to change those things. So instead, I've always focused in on what can I change. And the things that you can change are your physical fitness levels. So you can control if you go work out or not, if you go exercise or not. You can control that. You can control what you eat and the quality of what you eat. You know, you get to decide, hey, am I going to choose to eat the fast food, or am I going to cook at home this evening? That's your choice. The other thing that you get complete control over is how you interpret things in your life. So for example, if something happens to you, you get to decide if you're going to interpret that thing as a positive or a negative. Let's say you get fired from your job. Now you could think of this as a very negative situation, or you could think of it as something super positive that you're happy about. You know, you look at it as an opportunity. Hey, if I didn't get fired, I might have been stuck at a dead-end job for the rest of my life. You get to decide if that's positive or negative. You also get to assign what things and what information you take away from experiences. If you have something really negative happen to you, well, you can either take that information and learn from it and grow from it, or you can use that information to feel down about yourself, to feel frustrated and let yourself get stuck in a hole. The last thing, or not the last thing, but the last thing I'm going to mention is you also have control over how you speak. You can control how fast you speak, and you can control what type of vocabulary you use when you speak. Okay, so these are things that are all within your control that have a very, very strong impact on the types of women you can attract into your life. Because like I said, me being a 5'8" man, I have not had issues in dating. It's just something that, again, and I'm going to go into explaining kind of what I think is a big problem with guys who use height as a crutch to just think it's not worth the effort, okay? So when you focus in on the things that you cannot control and dwell on them and consider those things very negative, then what happens is that you start to get in the cycle of pessimism, okay? And when you generate this pessimistic attitude, it affects your whole entire mood. And when I say that, I mean body language. So you're gonna be more slumped over. You might be walking around like this, very guarded. This energy closes people off and it signals to people that they don't wanna be around you, okay? It also creates negative interactions with whoever comes your way, and maybe they strike up a conversation with you. But if you're stuck on being self-conscious and being negative about your height, or maybe the way you look, that energy is going to turn people off. That is what is turning people off. It's not necessarily your height. Now, on first impression, maybe the height is something that does initially, maybe they're not exactly drawn to you, but once they interact, that can reverse. So let me give you an example. I have quite a few, I observe when I'm with people, or when I'm with other men who are taller than me or more muscular than me, I observe how other people interact with us. And I'll be honest with you, I do notice when we meet women, a lot of the times those women will gravitate towards the taller guy. They will gravitate towards the guy who's maybe more muscular than I do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they stay with that guy, because oftentimes I'm the type of guy who I like to sit back, observe, and I keep it a little bit more chill. And some of the other guys who maybe aren't as socially attuned as I am, or who aren't as conversational as I am, the conversation runs dry, and it offers an opportunity for me to interact. And because, again, I am of the philosophy that I'm not going to chase after somebody, I would rather attract. And if a woman initially goes towards someone else and realizes that isn't for her, and she comes over to me, then that's an opportunity then for me to interact with them in the best way I know how, and that's through my social skills, my ability to banter, to joke and tease, which I've seen oftentimes overcomes the height factor. So let me give you a very specific example, okay? So I'm a director, I do commercials and film work, and one of the guys that I've worked with is a cameraman who's much taller than I am, good looking guy, and on set he's very confident, and he's very, knows exactly what he wants, knows what he's doing. And so initially when we are on set, women do gravitate towards him. Now, I'm being the director, yes, of course my position is higher, so women do gravitate towards that too. But a lot of the times what happens is that the women initially gravitate towards him, and they realize that offset, he's not the same man as he is on set. He's not as confident. He's not as direct and decisive. He falls into a much more submissive position when he's offset. Now, whether I'm on set or I'm offset, my personality generally stays the same. And so a lot of the times what would happen is that guy that I would be working with would ask out all the girls on set. And, if I saw a cute girl, of course, it was cool and everything, but I'm usually about the work. I want to get it done. And if they approach me and want to initiate something, that's fine. So what would happen was, despite him being taller and maybe in some ways a bit more dashing, they'd go out, but the girls would then put themselves in my zone and want to go out with me. And when we did, oftentimes those girls would tell me about this other guy and kind of say, oh, he's just a really nice guy. Okay, so he got the dreaded nice guy thing, even though he's taller, super confident on set. But after that initial meeting and they realize, okay, this guy is good there, but he isn't congruent outside of work. But then going out with me, they got to see that, okay, this guy's very direct and decisive because he is a director, but also when we go out for a drink or hang out, I'm the same way on set as I am off set. So you can see how that would draw a woman into, when you're being authentic. I'm 5'8", hey, I know it, I don't care. And for me, it's like, hey, if you like that, great. If you don't like it, that's okay too. And this brings me into my next point of, if I were to focus in on my height, I would most likely act very ashamed. Or if I thought that it was a negative being 5'8", I would be ashamed of it. And by being ashamed of it, I would probably inadvertently say negative, self-deprecating things about my height, which would then feed into whoever was interacting with me, like, oh, this guy doesn't have confidence. I thought he was cool, but I'm not gonna hang out with him. So by focusing in on that, I would be self-sabotaging my own chances with any woman that I would go out with on a date. And that's why I'm saying to you guys is you don't want to have any of that stuff in your mind whatsoever, because you cannot change it no matter what it is that you do. So much of this stuff, whether you attract a woman or make her go away, it has to do with how you view yourself. So if you see yourself as being less than just because you're not as tall as other guys, well, you're going to behave that way and ultimately sabotage yourself and your own chances, okay? And I'm going to bring in just another aspect to this conversation. It's not exactly related to being short, but it has to do with another factor that I can't change, which is my race, okay? So I'm half Chinese, I'm half European. Now, we all know that, there are certain stereotypes about different groups, right? And this is just the way that it is. We might not like it, but I can't change it, and that's just the way that it is. So if I were to focus on negative stereotypes maybe about being Asian, then again, I would let those behaviors dictate how I see myself, which would then dictate if I was down about myself or if I was confident about myself, I don't look at anything that I'm born with as a negative thing. I literally flip it around and I embody it. I'm proud of it, and I don't go around boasting about it, but I don't let it dictate how I see myself. And if you don't let it dictate how you see yourself, no one else is gonna look at you in that way either. It's very much how you see yourself. If you're cool, if you don't even bring it up, no one else is gonna pay attention to it. But if you draw attention to it, then people are gonna notice it. So you just wanna live as though it's really just a matter of fact thing. It's not a big deal. Do not draw attention to your height. I practice the mindset of complete freedom when it comes to dating and interacting with women. And what I mean by this is that if a woman really wants to leave me because she's not digging my height, then I want her to leave. I don't want her to stick around. Why would I want someone who's forcing herself to be with me to stay? I wouldn't want that. Not for me and not for her. If she really truly desires something else, I'd rather her be with somebody that she really desires. Because fake desire, phoning it in, nobody wants that. Even if I would be hurt by it, or even if I would be disappointed, I'd rather have her have that complete freedom to do that, okay? Because if it's gonna be fake, I don't want it. And my mind focuses on the potentiality of options. I think about what could be with what I have, with who I am, with the man that I am. I think about what I can do instead of thinking about what I can't do because of what I have. And I think a lot of guys get stuck in that trap of thinking, because I'm this race, because I'm this height, and because I look like this, I can't do these things. No, you don't do that. You got to flip it where, for myself, I'm like, okay, I'm this tall, I'm looked like this, and this is my background. What benefits and what pluses does that give me that I can use to my advantage? I'm always thinking about what can I use to my advantage instead of what is going to harm me and be my disadvantage. It's a very different way of looking at it. If you feel sorry for yourself, you're going to go further and further into that downward spiral. And things like your height, which you have zero control over, are really going to bother you, and you're going to destroy your own chances and really sabotage your own opportunities. So I also want to say too that, again, only focus on things that you do have control over. Because let me give you another funny example. Is I have actually quite a few friends who are taller than me, and some of them are actually in much better physical shape than I am. But these particular guys have struggled way more than me when it comes to dating. Most of them have a very difficult time meeting women, even though maybe initially a woman would see them and think they're cool, but they can't talk. They don't have any game. They can't keep a conversation going. And maybe they do get a date, but they can't get more than 1 or 2 dates. They don't know how to maintain a long-term relationship. I've never had a problem with this, and it's usually the opposite situation where I have to turn women down, where I'm like, it's been really fun, but I don't think I'm ready for a long-term commitment with you. And so this has to do again with how you see yourself and being able to have good conversational skills. And again, these are things that are all within your control. You can work on those things and you can change them to get good at them. Okay, so that's why I don't believe in worrying about height or anything else like that. And even guys who are really strong, really buff, one thing I've noticed is a lot of the times women will be attracted to them initially, but they even have their own baggage, which is some women think, or they see guys who are really strong, really buff, but if they can't talk, they literally get used just for sex. And now some of you guys are thinking, that's fucking awesome. What's wrong with that? And that's fine, but a lot of these guys who are really buff, they actually want something more substantial, but they really can't get it because some women only see them as this sort of toy or just a guy to flirt with and stroke their own ego because there was some hot guy, but they can't get it going any further because a lot of those guys just don't have the game necessary to keep a woman hooked in. They can't get into her mind and really speak to her soul and cause her to really latch on and want to be with him day in and day out. And again, you don't have to be tall and you don't have to be ripped to be able to get a woman to really feel those things for you. Okay, so being able to, height will get you in the door. Being ripped will get you in the door. There's no doubt about it. I witness this all the time where I'm with guys who are really ripped and girls just are drawn to them. But if you don't got the game, if you don't have the sexual prowess, if you don't have the ability to banter and be confident in who you are, a lot of the times those women will bounce after a little while when they realize you have the facade, but you don't have the inner core. And that's something that's very, very important in order to keep and maintain a woman strongly, for her to strongly desire you long term, okay? So for those of you who are shorter men, who think you're short, I'm not gonna say you're short because I think short is a mindset, okay? You may be a different height than a man who has a taller height than you, but don't consider yourself short. Use what you got, control, work on the things that you can control, and let go of the things that you simply have absolutely zero say in. Because the more you dwell on that, the worse you're gonna feel, and it's gonna compound on yourself. You're gonna get less results. You're gonna start feeling worse about yourself. Then you'll get even worse, even less results, and it'll keep going worse and worse and worse. So take it from me, I'm not a tall man. I'm only 5'8", which, hey, to me that's not short. I mean, I don't think that's a short height. And also context matters too. I'm half Asian, half Chinese, and culturally, a lot of Chinese people aren't that tall. So for being half Asian, 5'8" is actually very tall in my family. I am the tallest one in my family, and I'm very comfortable with it. And one other Easter egg for you guys with the height thing is, I've dated a woman who was 6'1". She was 6'1", and she was a Division I basketball player at a very elite university here in California. And did that intimidate me? Did it stop me? Absolutely not. She was a great girl, a really fun girl, and she had no qualms whatsoever in going out with a guy like me, because for her it wasn't about height. And I think it's just something to be conscientious of. Data is one thing, and I do think that it's important to look at this data. But at the same time, if you let data control you and your beliefs about yourself, that's weak behavior. So like I said, she was taller than me by a lot, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it was a little bit hard to put my arm around her when we're walking around, but hey, we figured it out, and it was a lot of fun, and it didn't factor into how she saw me or how I saw myself with the height difference. And I've even dated women who are my height or maybe a little bit taller than me, and it's just not a thing. I don't let it get to me, because like I said, it has nothing to do with me. And if they're with me, that means they voted to. They don't care about it either. So anyway, guys, I hope this is answering your question. I hope this is giving you some valuable insight into a different way to think about your own personal height, because you can't change it. But I'd like to hear your stories. Are you someone who considers yourself short, and what troubles have you run into? Drop those in the comments below. I'd like to hear them. And vice versa. Guys out there who are tall, like some of my friends who are super tall, but they kind of suck with girls and they haven't been able to get much luck. Are you one of those guys who maybe you're tall and if you notice girls come up to you, but then you can't keep it going? If that's you, drop some comments down below. And if you enjoy the video, please subscribe. I invite you to subscribe and hang out here. I drop videos every week. And lastly, I have one other piece of information for those of you guys out there who want more information. I have a free guide that I put together called How to Attract Feminine Women into Your Life. So that link is available down below. So if you're interested and wanting to add some skills to yourself on how to attract more feminine women into your life, grab that guide. All right, guys, that's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one.